Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I, the one and only, Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Sonic Rush Adventure for the Nintendo DS. So, last time, we essentially did manage to explore into not only one, not two, not three, but 4 different hidden islands, mainly because we stumbled across into one by complete accident once we make our way to the pirates' hideout. In addition to that, we did manage to make our way to the pirates' hideout, but as soon as we realized about the fact that the door itself is not opened, mainly because we do somehow manage to find 3 clues of those specific keys, and that way we should be able to actually explore into not only Hidden Island 3, but as well as Hidden Island 4, and finally Hidden Island 5, despite the fact that it really doesn't matter what order of the levels I somehow went into, but that's besides the point. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on, and suffice to say, we can now finally head back into the forms of the pirates' hideout. So because of that though, once again we have to go through this particular submarine, in some cases deep typhoon. So yeah, that's one thing I honestly forgot to mention about during the Informs event yesterday, because as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that, well, today's date of course is the 16th of July today, in some cases in 2024 today, so naturally speaking though, is about the fact that we're now on to the halfway point in terms of July, before we move on to the 8th month in terms of 2024, that's what appears to be August. So, gee, I can't even believe time flies, doesn't it? Especially concerning for the fact that at this point in time, that we've only got about 10 more days to go until the Paris Olympics 2024 is about to start. So because of that though, I'm sure about the fact that most sports fans out there will be pretty excited to see a new event, to be more specifically, with the forms of breakdancing and stuff like that. So anyway, so I think this might be good for us, able to actually make our way back to the pirates' hideout. And relatively speaking though, is about the fact that, well, keep this in mind though, is about the fact that, like I said this before, that deep typhoon, usually it's all about rhythm, controls and stuff like that. Because if you time it the wrong time, obviously though, you will able to get more damage. So, yeah, that's one thing about the fact that I do somehow manage to get more accustomed to at this point. So, and as I said before, it's about the fact that, usually in yesterday's case, I pronounced it wrong, especially concerning for the fact that, mind you, about the fact that, well, as far as like I stated this before, that Sonic never actually used Deep Typhoon on his actual DS cartridge version of Sonic Rush Adventure, mainly because he's not overly keen on rhythm timing skills, especially concerning for the fact that at least I pretty much know exactly what to do right here, but it's just about the fact that when it comes to Sonic's perspective, well, at least back in long time ago that is, that basically though he's never overly keen on the forms of his rhythm controls. So, but, yeah, still every once in a while though is about the fact that if I was able to expect to do a perfect run through, but sometimes though is about the fact I easily get myself wrecked at one point, mainly because of the forms of how the fact that certain obstacles are extremely dangerous, most notably with these, sharks and etc. So, thankfully though, we did somehow made our way back to Pirates' Hideout without any sort of issues around here. So even then though, that was actually kind of a close call either, especially if I do mess up at one point. I will definitely say this right now, suffice to say I might as well go back onto the forms of the hovercraft thing again, especially concerning for the fact I always attempt to use Awkward Blast a lot, even though despite the fact that it does have some slight disadvantages, I will have to admit it the right way, but that's as far as I can try to explain about that. So, anyway, so we've now made our way back into that particular door, and now we can able to actually solve the actual clues. So naturally, we can now able to open up the door. And since about the fact that Marina Raccoon is not with us for the time being, thank the Lord for that, because I will admit it the right way, I'm still not a big fan of Marina Raccoon, to be honest, because she is so annoying and bossy at the same time. But either way, so as you can tell, we're actually going to be able to use the stylus for this particular segment right here, because obviously though, we need to able to spin it in a corresponding, shape. So because of that though, once you're able to actually figure out this particular keys right here, and as soon as that thing lit up, well, you're done. So now we can able to do open sesame kind of stuff. So either way though, I was assuming if I was gonna say something else, but then again, it's been about quite a few hours ago since I actually have last played this game for sure. And relatively speaking, I was about the fact that at this point in time, since they're about the fact that we've almost nearly at the end of July in some cases though, I think suffice to say, we can probably start able to actually do some more uploading schedules for this from now on, including with the forms of WarioWare Move It, just in case about the fact that if those two playthroughs will be over by then. Obviously though, we're probably not going to mention any further details for the time being, so relatively speaking now we can able to go for the door, and this will pretty much lead us to the final zone in the game. I'm pretty sure it says anyway. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that we can able to actually figure out you know, just trying to able to actually find Captain Whisker and stuff like that. So hopefully we can able to actually finish him off once and for all. So yeah, let's just go ahead and select Sonic for this one, because obviously though we've already selected Blaze quite a few times in the past few zones. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact there's a good opportunity that we can able to select Sonic in Pirates Island. So as far as I'm aware, Pirates Island is indeed without a doubt is the hardest zone in the game, mainly due to the forms of some obstacles that like to get in your way, and there's also this particular gimmick that involves around you have to be fast enough, and because of that though, you see what I mean if we're able to actually continue experiencing this entire stage. So either way though, I will say I do really like the music in this zone though, especially if it fits the actual tone to it, and on top of all that stuff though is about the fact I just really love, oh jeez, we have to be careful of those anchors, because if you dare get crushed underneath those anchors, guess what though, you die instantly. So because of that though, it doesn't matter how many rings you're having, so because of that though, everything else in this place is extremely dangerous, and every once in a while though, there's going to be a lot of bottomless pits for the usually for the sake of time. So yeah, as you can tell, we somehow managed able to bypass that particular timer gate, if you couldn't tell already. So basically though, if you decide able to go too slow on specific segments like this, basically though, the actual water decides able to close off the actual path, and as a result, the only reward you do get if you manage able to get past by that certain part, basically though, you get yourselves an extra life, and that's all there is to really think about it. Especially because, concerning for the fact that this is the final platforming zone in the whole game, not counting the forms of those whole bunch of hidden islands, which as a result, maybe exponentially, once we able to actually done with the main story as it is, basically though, we can able to actually decide able to do not only trying to able to explore into more hidden islands, but as well as some additional content here and there for the time as well. So, and as far as you're probably already wondering about the fact that, hey Ray, are you expected able to complete the insane amount of missions as you possibly could? Well, here's the thing though, because as far as I'm aware, I'm only going to be focusing on the story progressioning ones when it comes to able to actually go into mission mode and stuff like that while talk to Marine. Although at the moment right now, that Marine is not with us at the moment. So because of that though, maybe we'll try to do that after we're able to actually explore into many of those hidden islands until eventually at some point until, I don't know, like Thursday or something. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that at this point in time is about the fact that we can able to actually try to sort something out until we're able to try to figure something. So anyways though, there's also another thing I want to explain about this, is about the fact that yes indeed, we've only got about 2 more days to go until Nintendo World Championships NES Edition will be released on the Nintendo Switch. And I still have no idea what the reviews is going to be like. But I suppose I'll mention more about that particular detail and during at some point on Thursday specifically, once the actual game comes out. So either way though, now I'm sure enough though is about the fact that, like I somehow predicted that a couple of times, that it's kind of unfortunate about the fact that we still haven't exactly tried to able to get ourselves the physical edition of Nintendo World Championships NES Edition, because as far as I did manage to double check on my Nintendo store recently, yes indeed, the actual physical deluxe set has already been out of stock. So because of that though, my predictions became true, so that's how about the fact that it's kind of unfortunate we can't able to actually get the game physically now, mainly because of the actual out of stock situation, similar to the forms of how it does it for well, back in February as it is, for the likes of the forms of Sora Amiibo, but at the very least we did eventually get ourselves the Sora Amiibo for a quite cheap price compared to the forms of how it does it for, well, certain prices these days when it comes to certain Amiibos out there, but that's as far as I was expecting. So anyway though, also not to mention though is about the fact that, oh wow, 2 lives in 1 row for that particular segment right there. And by the way, something's worth noting for is about the fact that when it comes to Act 2 of Pirates Island, that obviously though we had to avoid a lot of stuff, ranging from anchors, alongside with spikes on the wall, and on top of all that stuff though, there's going to be a bunch of bottomless pits. And as a result, usually whenever we get towards the very end of this stage in particular, that basically though we have to encourage us to able to actually do some very tricky segments here and there. Like for instance, in this part right here, we definitely recommend you do have to slow down at one point once you ride on this dolphin. And by the way, riding on the dolphins is actually kind of fun. And similar to the forms of how it does it in Haunted Ship, if you manage to able to go through those rings while you're able to take a ride on a dolphin, you can able to actually pull off a little bit of a combo thing right there until you're able to actually realize that you get yourself some pretty good score points. And on top of all that stuff though, increasing your attention gauge for your boost. So, pretty swell I might add, especially considering for the fact that, well, I will admit though, this stage is actually pretty cool, despite the fact that it's a bit difficult on certain sections. So, to be more specifically in Act 2, because whenever I managed able to play this game on my own time, just for the sake of the practice run, my god, this stage might give me quite a lot of trial and error, I'm not gonna lie for saying this, and that's mainly because if you mess up at one point, to be more specifically, the dolphin section, you do realize there's a massive bottomless pit down below, and if you get knocked by the ceiling or a wall, basically though, the dolphin will just kick you out, and as a result, you fall to your death. So because of that though, that's no good, I'm telling you, that's seriously not good at all. And as you can tell, I somehow screwed this particular part up, which also contains a bottomless pit right there, and that means I'm a little bit further away back than I was expecting, because I was assuming about the fact that this stage in particular does feel pretty stingy on checkpoints sometimes. Well, that's probably just me anyway, because usually whatever I thought about it is about the fact that I'm pretty much used to with some Sonic games, where basically though, if you come towards the final section of the any other level, and basically though it just gives you a final checkpoint, like for example in Deadline Act 2 in the original Sonic Rush, that basically though when you make your way to the final finicky rocket segment, basically though it decides able to the game decides to give you the final checkpoint just before you get into that finicky rocket section, before you end off the level there. So yeah, that's actually pretty generous. Whilst in here though, basically though, if we somehow manage to activate that particular previous checkpoint, as you know, and then basically if I do die at one point, not just by the dolphin section, but to be more specifically, it's this part, well, not so much this part just yet, but the ones I'm referring to is right down there. And if I fell off again, that means about the fact that, oh wait a second. Oh, okay, I was assuming about the fact that there's going to be a checkpoint there, but apparently that's where the end of the level was. So, yeah, it's a little bit stingy when it comes to able to actually having certain checkpoints, but apart from those side things though, we did that okay enough. So, there we go. And we got ourselves our glorious A rank, and as a result, we got ourselves the final types of materials in this game in particular, and that's what appears to be the black material, which I'll talk more about the forms of the black materials and during at some point in also on Thursday, because obviously we still on the forms of Pirates Island after all, and as a result we still need to able to try to figure out how to take down Captain Whisker of all things. So, anyways though, one on the subject for this matter though is about the fact that recently I finally managed able to get myself my brand new DVD into our updated DVD collection at some point in the future, and yes indeed, we finally got ourselves with the forms of Kung Fu Panda 4. So as a result, while rewatching it though, I still find it to be one of the weakest in terms of the forms of the Kung Fu Panda movies I've seen, but don't get me wrong, it's not a bad film per se. I do think is actually kind of a good one. Not a full-on masterpiece or anything else like that while looking back on it though, especially because, well, then again, I'm probably not going to mention any spoilers for the sake of time, especially because concerning for the fact that Kung Fu Panda 4 is the most recent DreamWorks movie as it is. Well, it wasn't specifically until, I would say on September actually, that the next DreamWorks movie is going to be on its way, and that's what appears to be The Wild Robots, which I've heard a lot of good things about it though. Well, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that I'm still waiting for other films to be released on a big screen, ranging from, let's just say, you know, Deadpool and Wolverine, which as a result, we've only got 10 more days to go until that film is going to be releasing. And on top of that, of course, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, but that was on the actual TV channel, on the UK version, most likely, on BBC One, I'm pretty sure. And finally, most notably, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which as a result, we still have no idea if the actual trailer decides to show up, because I will have to admit it though right away is about the fact that a lot of Sonic fans, including myself, start to get a little bit panicked at first glance, especially because concerning for the fact it's bad enough that, you know, Mufasa the Lion King shares the exact same release date as Sonic the Hedgehog 3 when it comes to the forms of the theatrical release. So, as a result, I'm just a little bit too anxious to know of what's happening to, you know, the hype of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 as of now. Although, if I've noticed something is about the fact that they somehow bring up a lot of leaks again, and as a result, this time around though, it's going to be filled to the brim of, like, upcoming merchandise, ranging from toys and probably McDonald's, just like the forms of how it does it in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 back in Journey forms of in 2022. Well, then again though, it's just about the fact that I mentioned this earlier, it's all about the leaks and stuff like that, which, trust me, what I'm saying is I don't usually trust leaks anymore, especially after the events of how the fact that, you know, how Nintendo leakers just keeps on popping up every once in a while, back in the day that is, since 2022, and 2023, and now 2024, but thankfully though, the actual Nintendo leaks of specific stuff is now over and done with. So because of that though, because, you know, thankfully we've got ourselves a whole bunch of games coming out for the second half in 2024, so that should be pretty exciting. So anyways, here we go with the next boss in the game, and that's what appears to be not only Captain Whisker, but also Johnny appears. So as a result, the last time we actually see Johnny was back in Journey Falls of, before we were able to make our way to not only Hidden Island 1, but as well as the forms of Coral Cave as well. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to be able to actually bump into Johnny again after the events of the beginning portion of the game. And I will say is about the fact that this boss fight is actually kind of hilariously entertaining, and at the same time a little bit more weird sometimes, because obviously though we have to able to like do like 1 versus 2 kind of boss battle or something like that. Well, obviously it doesn't really matter what character you play as. So basically though, it's about the fact that you simply just keep on jumping onto not only Captain Whisker, but also Johnny as well. Although, sometimes though, you easily manage able to take down Johnny first, because as far as I'm aware, when it comes to Captain Whisker, that can be wait until later on, because as far as I'm aware, Johnny can be easily being wrecked for the certain amount of hits. So either way though, although I will admit though right away, I actually kind of like this boss fight actually. Although despite the fact that the actual saw blades will pop up every once in a while to make things a little bit more tricky and difficult. But apart from those side of things though, it's actually kind of a fun boss fight in my eyes. Especially concerning for the fact that you does manage able to explore into not only the majority of the bottom screen, but also at the top screen as well. So you can able to actually see a different sections of the battle arena. And yeah, sometimes though it's about the fact that, you know, when you take down Johnny, obviously though it's about the fact that Captain Whisker is the only ones left, and as a result, he does manage able to, you know, bring up some interesting attacks, like for instance with the flamethrower, a massive ground pound stomp, and especially noticeable with these arms as homing missiles. So yeah, and as soon as when Johnny is still around on that boss fight, usually between both Captain Whisker alongside with Johnny, they can actually perform a tag action, something very similar to the forms of how it does it on well, the majority of the partner system from Sonic Advance 3, but I have no idea why I'm somehow referencing that. But either way, there goes Johnny and Captain Whisker. So yeah, all in all, not too shabby with this boss fight. And once again, we get ourselves our pretty awesome A rank, no pun intended. So, because obviously though, with an A rank stands for awesome rank. So, anyway, so there's also another thing I somehow got recently, and that's what appears to be my very first controller and phone holder. And as a result, the version I choose is the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog, because he looks awesome regardless. Especially because recently I did manage to demonstrate that when it comes to my Switch Pro controller, to be more specifically the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate one, and I'm gonna say, it does look pretty cool while Sonic is actually holding the Nintendo Switch controller, which could be also applied for DualShock 4 for the PlayStation 4, including Xbox One controllers, and even DualSense every once in a while for the PlayStation 5. And I must say though, despite it's a bit pricey whenever I went into certain shops recently, but I will say, it is super satisfying to able to actually put that onto my display, especially about the fact that if I was currently playing through the majority of the Nintendo Switch games, and if I decide to take a break on playing certain Switch games on TV, and obviously though I can switch over to handheld portable play, and as a result I can put my Switch Pro controller right onto the Sonic controller and phone holder, which I also demonstrated with my glorious iPhone XR, and as a result it fits in really nicely, even though despite the fact that my protector case was in the way. But apart from those aside things though, I think it's really awesome, especially that I somehow say it right from the start though, it is certainly worth a purchase, especially because since I'm still a massive Sonic fan even to this day, despite the fact that when it comes to Abomination titles such as, you know, Sonic 06, Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, Sonic Labyrinth, Sonic Blast, and all that stuff for the Game Gear, which as a result, yeah, there might be still some Dark Age moments here and there, especially concerning for the fact that, well, you get the drill for this point. So, anyways though, speaking of which though, I did somehow manage to find out that out of nowhere, to be more specifically in the American version most likely, that Knuckles the series is going to be airing on Nickelodeon until August 12th. So yeah, that seems out of nowhere, especially concerning for the fact that I'm almost expecting about the fact that Knuckles the series is going to be exclusive to Paramount Plus, but as a result, that's no longer the case, especially because, like I said this before, not only about the fact that, well, we're going to be getting the DVD release, but as well as the Blu-ray release as well. So yeah, that seems kind of strange when it comes to likely trying to able to announce something like this. But either way though, oh geez, something bad is about to happen, and as a result, Marine the Raccoon is now involved with this. Gosh darn it, Marine, why would you able to do some reckless stuff like this again and again and again? But either way, and yeah, I'm pretty sure about the fact that when it comes to Knuckles the series, as far as I'm aware, when that's going to be airing onto Nickelodeon, I'm pretty sure it might do the same thing as the forms of not only the first Sonic movie aired on Nickelodeon, but that could be also applied for Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie as well. They might able to actually censor certain bad language here and there, like for instance with the forms of let's just say hell or any other offensive words here and there for, you know, for kids channels anyway. So I understand, because obviously though you don't want to hear kids hearing the forms of some mild language, while unlike the forms of how it does it on any other channels, it's perfectly fine. And I don't mind about it at all still, especially concerning for the fact that, well, it is pretty unexpected, especially concerning for the fact that when it comes to both Sonic movies, you know, with the most recent ones, it's been rated PG and stuff like that. So yeah, I can possibly understand why they decided able to actually censor those specific swear words from time to time for, you know, certain films, including the forms of Ants, Chicken Run for some extent, and on top of that, much more, including Shrek as well. Specifically both Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, respectively. So, yeah, that's as far as I can probably expect that. So, Also recently about the fact that when it comes to the forms of Splatfest on Splatoon 3, specifically Splatfest number 17, that it looks like about the fact that Team Beach is the winner when it comes to the forms of the most recent Splatfest, which it already did happen. Which, then again, I'll explain more about that in a second, because as far as I'm aware, it looks like about the fact that Captain Whisker, he's basically not been defeated at all. So, either way. And suffice to say, about the fact that no matter what though, there's one new additional thing that I suppose that Sonic and Amy have both forgot to mention about during the course of their Let's Play of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. Apparently though, is about the fact that there will be a new missions in Sonic Cross Shadow Generations in the game that's gonna called Shadow Rescue for replay value. So I just want to classify that. So much like the forms of how it does in Sonic Rush, where basically though, if we think we are done here, well, we've got another threat to take care of, and that's what appears to be Big Swell. Or to be more accurate though, Ghost Titan. So that's what I was expecting what that boss's name was, but ultimately though, we ended up in the final zone in the game, which is called Big Swell. So basically though, in this boss fight right here is about the fact that on this particular attack right there, when he summons some bunch of missiles coming from the top screen, basically though you have to knock these specific missiles right back at those little cannon turrets. And basically though, if you try to take care of the actual cannon thing right there, you can able to actually hop into the actual cannon turret. And you can able to actually do a timing system right here, especially you have to be able to keep an eye on with that particular cursor, because if you're trying to able to actually get in contact with the exact same cursor on the middle, that way you can able to actually get your best chance to able to actually do multiple hits on the Ghost Titan. So yeah, that's one thing you have to keep an eye on for. And every once in a while though is about the fact that he'll summon the forms of some different amount of attacks, ranging from his arms that can sometimes manage able to launch straight towards you, and basically though, those arms are pretty simple to dodge. Oh, and by the way, something's worth noting for when it comes to the forms of that particular cannon shot, if you time it a bit too early when it comes to likely trying to collide with the actual cursor in the middle, obviously though you only just go to deal with one hit of damage for Ghost Titan right here. So, now I will say is about the fact that this particular final zone in this game in particular is actually not too shabby this time around, because unlike in Sonic Rush, which appears to be in the unknown, that was on the final zone in Sonic Rush when you're trying to deal with the Egg King, where basically though the difficulty is a bit too much for my liking, especially because it actually contains some instant death attacks, and on top of all that stuff though, those very annoying pink electricity attack you definitely need to dodge at all times, which I found is a little bit unavoidable sometimes, even on normal mode. Although, if you try to set the game on easy mode, then obviously though you have an easier time, especially because obviously though you deal with like 6 hits rather than 8 hits, unlike in normal mode. So yeah, you see that right there for about a few seconds ago, that basically though if you time it a bit too early with that particular aiming reticle, basically though you only deal with 1 damage to Ghost Titan, although if you time it perfectly, then you can obviously get your benefit for the doubt when it comes to able to actually get a multitude of hits on him. So I mean, then again though, thankfully this boss fight is not too bad, unlike the other thing, which then again though, we'll talk more about that during at some point later on in Journey Forms of this whole entire month. So anyway, and oh jeez, I totally forgot about the fact that they now start able to pop up not 1 but 2 cannon turrets. So, and obviously though I obviously trying to able to recommend trying to concentrate onto one of them at the time, because whatever I was able to concentrate on 2 at the same time, well, that makes the entire boss fight a little bit tricky and difficult. Well, apart from those aside things though, this boss is not too shabby. So either way though, yeah, let's just hop into this particular cannon turret right there. Eventually, if you think we're about to be done with this boss fight right here, the actual aiming reticle decides to go a lot more faster, as it actually definitely gets a little bit more tricky to, like, you know, time your shots well enough. And just like the forms of how it does it for the Egg King, obviously though, if we think we've done, well, obviously Ghost Titan has one more attack to deal with. So because of that though, and just like the forms of how it does it in Sonic Rush with the forms of the Egg King, just keep on jumping, and as soon as you've done so, then obviously though, the final hit has been executed. So either way, that pretty much does it for Big Swell. So all in all, this zone is actually not too bad. It's definitely not so much frustrating compared to the forms of how it does it for the Egg King. I gotta say this right from the start. And just like in Pirates Island, we can able to actually get the black material, so... And there goes the Ghost Titan. So, yay, the day is saved, right? Well, then again though, we'll talk more about that if we somehow manage to go for this ending, alongside with the forms of, presumably, the credits coming up. So, and there's also another thing I totally forgot to mention about this either, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, when it comes to the forms of this upcoming Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, specifically Dark Beginnings animated shorts, basically though is about the fact I've noticed there are certain trivia that I somehow managed to find out. Like basically this short series will mark the first physical appearances of several characters in the franchise in several years. Like for instance, the first appearance of Emerald in 20 years since its debuted, since in Sonic Battle for the Game Boy Advance, which I know for a fact that I would say both Sonic and Amy have already mentioned about this, or perhaps even maybe I somehow mentioned about that during the course of this game in particular. And there's also going to be the first appearance of Maria and General Robotnik in 19 years in a non-port game since Shadow of the Hedgehog back in 2005, that is. And on top of that, the first appearance of Gun Soldiers in 18 years in a non-port game since Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, because as far as I'm aware, that Shadow basically works for Gun in that game, especially considering for a fact that despite the story in both Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06 are not only confusing, but it's also about the fact that it's definitely a little bit more convoluted here and there. So yeah, everything else will be come to expect. So anyway, so I also realized about the fact that we somehow managed to able to retrieve ourselves a dual scepter, thanks to the forms of Marina Raccoon's plan early on, just before the final boss in the game. So yeah, that's actually a pretty unexpected move. At least I'll give Marina Raccoon some credit for when it comes to able to figure that plan out. So yeah, that's why usually, as far as I can recall that, like distracting Captain Whisker when it comes to able to retrieving that particular dual scepter, at least as far as I'm usually concerned with. So either way though, there's also another thing I want to mention about this actually though, is about the fact that when it comes to the forms of Disney Plus in general, that it looks like we're about to be receiving the 4-minute special when it comes to our special look at the forms of Inside Out 2, despite the fact that I've already seen Inside Out 2 already, when it comes to the forms of seeing it on the cinemas, or the big screen to be more specifically, which I still honestly recommend it to you guys out there. And there's also another thing I want to classify for something for this matter though. Unfortunately though, the weather conditions is still not very great, I have to be quite frank here, to be more specifically in the UK country as of right now, especially because, for goodness sake, we're on summer after all, and we can expect able to see the forms of, you know, gloriously sunshiny day, but unfortunately though, when it comes to the forms of certain weather conditions, it's too unpredictable at this rate. So anyways though, there's also another thing I want to mention about, and that's what appears to be about the fact that when it comes to the forms of that Splatfest thing, as I mentioned this earlier, well, like I mentioned this before, is that Team Beach has already won the actual latest Splatfest. And as far as I'm aware, when it comes to the forms of specific results, that basically the final results are, 150 points for Team Palace, and 310 points for Team Theme Park, and finally Team Beach actually receives 410 points. So yeah, that seems quite a lot of points when it comes to that particular team in mind. So anyway, and while on the subject for this point though, not only did we somehow receive not one but two movies has already celebrated the anniversaries yet again. Except this time what appears to be two movies for the Muppets. So one of them celebrates the 40th anniversary since in 1984, and then the other one did somehow celebrate its 25th anniversary during the films of in 1999. So those films in questioning are The Muppets Take Manhattan, released in 1984, and The Muppets from Space, which obviously did release in 1999. So, relatively speaking though, well, happy 25th anniversary of the film's release of Muppets from Space, and happy 40th anniversary of The Muppets Take Manhattan. So, I almost say Manhattan for some reason, because I keep thinking about the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic counterpart of Manhattan, or better known as Manhattan. So, because of the forms of the E right next to both M and N, respectively. So, either way. And, yeah. And that's also the final thing I wanted to mention about is that eventually, yes, Despicable Me 4 has now made it towards the forms of the top 10 highest grossing films of 2024 recently, even though so far anyway is about the fact that Despicable Me 4 is now on 5th place at the moment. So I wouldn't expect about the fact that they're trying to catch up to Inside Out 2 or anything else like that, because as far as I'm aware, Inside Out 2 has recently beat out Frozen 1 for the sake of the highest grossing animated films, and is almost trying to catch up to the films of the Super Mario Bros. Movie box office department. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell, especially because concerning for the fact that I do attempt to enjoy not only Inside Out 2, but as well as the Super Mario Bros. Movie as well. So yeah, everything else will become to expect when it comes to the forms of the updated box office records. So anyways though, well that being said folks, is that we get endings off this point right here. So join us next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Rush Adventure, and that's because of that, the game is not over yet, because we see that familiar silhouette that he's going to be planning for something, and also the notifications telling me I need to collect all of the Chaos Emeralds and Soul Emeralds. So this will be fun and interesting, so I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later fellas.